All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is Congressman Greg Stanton, and I want to welcome everyone joining us today for our Small Business Solutions webinar, as we are dealing with this extraordinary and unprecedented moment in our nation's history. In the midst of this public health and economic crisis, you deserve to know what your government is working hard at, what we're doing to support you and to deliver meaningful solutions for your business, your employees, and your family. I know that so many of the people joining us here today and so many more in our community are facing unprecedented challenges that you never imagined possible. My team and I have spoken to countless small business owners in the past few weeks, and I have heard firsthand your stories, your questions, your concerns as you try to stay afloat during these uncertain times. As your representative in Congress, and during my time previously as Phoenix mayor, and even back when I was a city councilman, I have always believed that small businesses, they're the backbone of our economy, and they're what make our community special. And I will continue to fight for you to make sure you have the support needed to succeed in the days, weeks, and months ahead. We need you to be successful throughout this crisis and beyond. So today, we're going to cover the resources available. I'm joined by three experts with the United States Small Business Administration. They know their stuff, and they're going to talk and walk us through how to take advantage of these important resources. Before I turn it over to Craig, Delia, and Yolanda from the SBA, I want to give a brief overview of the work that we've been doing in Congress during this crisis. Last Friday, I flew back to Washington to vote on Phase 3 stimulus package, also known as the CARES Act. It created a series of loan and grant programs for our small businesses that we'll be discussing in more detail today. The CARES Act had a $2 trillion price tag, the largest spending package in United States House of Representatives history. That gives you a sense of how serious this moment is for our economy. That was one of two other critical stimulus efforts, the Families First Act and our initial $8.3 billion funding bill to help supply important PPE and other healthcare necessities to our country. Through those actions, we've ensured coronavirus testing would be free to anyone in need, regardless of whether or not they are insured. Emergency paid sick leave, enhanced emergency unemployment insurance, more than $1 billion to expand food assistance programs, emergency measures to protect frontline healthcare workers, and much more. But I know these measures to financially support hardworking families and the small businesses in our community are useless unless we can get you connected to the access to these critical resources needed to navigate this public health crisis. That's why we're here today. That's why we're doing this webinar. So I've called on experts from the Small Business Administration. With their expertise and institutional knowledge, they will help guide you through the process and answer any questions you might have. I'm going to keep working and fighting to make sure we come out of this as financially secure and as stable as possible. Now I want to introduce you to our three experts from the Small Business Administration. First, Craig Jordan. He's a supervisory specialist in lender relations with the Arizona District Office of the SBA. Second, we have Delia Gomez, an economic development specialist, also with the Arizona District Office of the Small Business Administration. And Yolanda Stokes is the public information officer with the Office of Disaster Assistance for the SBA field operations. Craig, would you be kind enough to start us off?
Well, thank you, Congressman Stanton. We really appreciate being invited. And I want to say this on behalf of my colleagues. We really appreciate you being in the forefront of providing this very important information to your constituents. Because what we're going to cover today is some of the basic features and functionality of the CARES Act that Congressman Stanton was just talking about. And one of the big things that a lot of the small business community borrowers have questions about is the Paycheck Protection Program. And that's what we're going to focus on today. But basically, I wanted to kind of give you a framework because a lot of you have questions. You have questions about where do I go to find the right lender. Any 7A lender that is currently involved in SBA lending can provide the Paycheck Protection Program. We are channeling other lending communities and other lending channels outside of those that are already signed up with SBA to be able to allow them to provide this loan as well. That will be a work in progress. We're expecting to get a lot of guidance and information from our agency later tomorrow so that the lending community can begin accepting applications for the Paycheck Protection Program. So although there were votes and although the money has been allocated, the actual part that we are awaiting or ready for is actually literally just steps away, and or within the next few days, we should be able to send you to lenders so you can apply for it. What I would tell you is, because right now, today, as it stands, the program is not rolling, we expect it in the next couple of days. What you're going to want to do is pay very close attention to your resource partners, to your congressman's office, to your government agencies to provide the information when this thing goes green. But today I'm going to walk you through what it is, how it works, give you some of the fundamental aspects of it so that you'll know how to deal with it going forward and you'll know where to go to get help. So the first thing is just a quick overview of the programs. We have existing 7A loans, and this is something for you to keep for your information. We will be providing, I believe, a recording and a copy of the slides after the presentation for those that provided their information. But there's really three main parts to the CARES Act. There is the Paycheck Protection Program, there is the Bridge Loan Program, and there are the Economic Injury Disaster Loans that my colleague will be speaking out. And then there is another aspect of it, which is called the Debt Relief Program that we will touch upon quickly, which is a specialized area of forgiveness. But let's talk quickly really about paycheck protection, what most of the businesses are looking for. And this is an element of forgiveness of up to 8 weeks of payroll that is based upon employee retention and salary levels. There are no SBA fees, and it also has at least 6 months of deferral, with maximum deferrals are up to a year. The kind of eligible entities are most small businesses are going to be eligible. And if they were harmed by COVID-19 between February 15th, 2020 and June 30th, 2020, they would be eligible. The program would be retroactive to February 15th in order to help bring workers who may have been laid off back onto payrolls. And the loans, as it currently stands, are available to be applied for through June 30th. So the $349 billion that was offered in forgivable loans are all going to have the same loan terms. And those loans are going to be forgiven as long as the loan proceeds are used to cover payroll costs, most mortgage interest, rent, utility costs over the 8-week period after the loan is made, and a certain amount of employee and compensation levels are maintained. Some of the payroll costs are capped for higher earners or higher level employees at $100,000 on an annualized basis for each employee. And it is anticipated that not more than 25% of any forgiven amount can be for non-payroll costs. So what this program essentially is designed to do is cover 8 weeks of payroll cost, to make it very, very simple. The business does have to be in operation on February 15, 2020. So small business concerns, normal small businesses, as well as some nonprofit organizations, veteran organizations, or even tribal business concerns that has fewer than 500 employees or meets the applicable size standard for the North American Industry or NAICS system is eligible. Individuals who operate a sole proprietorship or independent contractor are eligible, as well as self-employed individuals. Any business concern that employs not more than 500 employees per physical location and that is assigned a NAICS code beginning with 7.2, affiliation rules are waived. And what affiliation has to do with is when a business is deemed large. For those of you that are not really familiar with SBA, SBA is the Small Business Administration, and we're trying to provide avenues for small business owners. So this is talking about affiliation rules. They can be waived for a business concern operating as a franchise that is assigned a franchise identifier code, and that company receives funding through a small business investment company. We talked about nonprofits. Nonprofits can also be eligible. Religious organizations are also being considered. There will be more guidance coming. When we receive final guidance, I believe they will have how they're going to structure religious organizations in terms of this eligibility. And there are other business models as well that are still being considered. So how much? The maximum loan size is $10 million. How it is calculated for your loan availability is really in 3 ways. If you were in business on February 15th through June 30th, your maximum loan is 250% of your average monthly payroll cost during that time period. If you have seasonal workers, you can opt to choose March 1 as your time period start date. If you were not in business between February 15th 2019 and June 30th, 2019, it's 250% of your average monthly payroll cost between January 1 and February 29th. If you took out an economic injury disaster loan between February 15th and June 30th, and you want to refinance that loan into a PPP loan, you would add the outstanding loan amount to the payroll sum. And that is a question that many small business owners have with these different types of funds. Can they be utilized separately or in combination? And technically they could be done both ways. What do I need to apply? You will need to complete an application with a lender that is authorized to provide it and provide required documentation by that June 30th. You'll need to provide your lender with payroll documentation and financial records that would cover your outflow of payroll through those periods that I mentioned earlier with the 3 different loan amount scenarios. Do I need to first look for other funds before applying to this program? Not necessarily, but you certainly can. We're waiving the usual SBA requirement that you need to obtain credit elsewhere. That is not part of the eligibility requirements for the PPP loan. Again, the program is through June 30th. How many loans can I take out under this program? There is only 1 PPP loan per applicant. And what can you use the money for? Well, their payroll costs, including benefits, so that's health, dental, all that stuff, interest on mortgage obligations, rent under lease agreements that were in force prior to February 15th, utilities for which service began, so it's expenses and payroll costs. What does count as payroll costs? Again, salaries, wages, commissions, tips, capped at the $100,000 for high earners. Employee benefits, which are vacation, parental, family, medical, sick leave, state and local taxes. For a sole proprietor and independent contractor, there'd be wages, commissions, income, or net earnings from self-employment, again, capped at the higher earning levels at $100,000 on an annualized basis for each employee. You do have to make some certifications that the information is true to the best of your knowledge. You do have to certify that the economic uncertainty makes the loan necessary. You have to use the funds to retain workers and maintain payroll. You will not receive another loan under this program. When I say this program, I mean this particular PPP program. You will provide the lender documentation that verifies the number of full-time equivalent employees on payroll and the dollar amounts of payroll costs, covered mortgage interest payments, covered rent payments, and covered utilities for the 8 weeks. Those are your expenses that are eligible. Loan forgiveness is provided for the sum of the documented payroll costs, covered mortgage interest payments, covered rent payments, and utilities. And this is, again, not more than 25% of the forgiven amount can be for non-payroll costs. All the information you provide in the application, supporting documents, are true to the best of your knowledge, and you acknowledge the lender will calculate the eligible loan amount using documents that you submit. You affirm that those are correct to the best of your knowledge. So we talked a little bit about this. Your loan can be forgiven. You will owe money when your loan is due if you use the loan amount for anything other than the eligible payroll costs, the mortgage, rent, utilities, and payments over the 8 weeks after getting the loan. You will also owe money if you do not maintain your staff and payroll. There is a provision in the program for you to rehire your employees. Your loan forgiveness can be reduced if you decrease your full-time employee headcount. Your loan forgiveness can be reduced if you decrease salaries and wages by more than 20% for any employee that made less than $100,000. And you have until June 30th, 2020 to restore your full-time employment and salary levels for any changes made between February 15th and April 26th of this year. So the question is, how do you receive it? You're going to submit a request to the lender that's servicing the loan. It's going to include documents that verify the number of full-time equivalent employees, the pay rate, as well as payments on all of the expenses that we mentioned earlier. You do have to certify that the documents are true and that you use the forgiveness amount to keep employees and make eligible payments and expenses. The interest rate, currently, that is potentially in flux. 0.5% is a fixed rate. Do I need to start paying interest on my loan? They're not due for 6 months, but interest will accrue over this period. There's no prepayment penalty. The loan is due in 2 years. Can you pay it early? Yes, there's no prepayment penalty. Do you need to pledge collateral? You do not need to pledge collateral, or there is no personal guarantee requirements on these loans. But if you use the proceeds for fraudulent purposes, the U.S. government can pursue criminal charges against you. So that is just a quick outline of the PPP program, and I realize I went through that fast, and that for many of the borrowers that haven't dealt with applying for a loan in a long time or dealt with, gathering up financial documents, any of those things, your lender will understand the program once the guidance is put out, and they will be able to provide you with advice and assistance in that arena. The small business debt relief, now this is a specialized part of the CARES Act that has to do with existing 7A borrowers or 504 loan borrowers. So if you have an existing 7A loan or a 504 loan in regular servicing, starting with the next payment due, there are 3 scenarios outlined that cover all possibilities with clear guidance of the debt relief program. SBA is going to make the principal and interest payment on all of those loans. If you're an existing borrower, not on deferment, you're going to get 6 months of payments of principal and interest, any associated fees beginning with the next payment due. If you're an existing borrower that has already negotiated a deferment, you're going to get 6 months of payments on the principal and interest and any associated fees beginning with the next payment due on the loan after the deferment period. And if you're a new borrower, you're taking out a new SBA 7A or 504 loan, you're going to get 6 months of the payment of principal and interest and any associated loans due for the first payment for any new loans within the first 6 months starting from the date of enactment, which is 3/27. So that's existing loans and new loans are going to get relief under the Small Business Debt Relief Program. Now with that, I'd like to take a moment and thank you for the invitation to be able to provide that information. You will be able to apply for the PPP loan as soon as SBA provides guidance, and we will be disseminating that information as soon as it's available. We will be passing that out to our community partners, including Congressman Stanton's office, so stay tuned to their distribution list. We expect it to be in the next couple days. There is a sample application on our website now that you can take a look at. It is not final yet until the finalized guidance comes out, which we expect sometime late tomorrow. But that way you can prepare for what kinds of questions they're going to be asking and kind of prepare for, finding the right lender. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Yolanda Stokes with the Disaster Area Loan Group.
Thank you, Craig, and thank you, Congressman Stanton and your staff and our partners at the district office for pulling together this webinar, very valuable resources to share with our business community in these unprecedented times. I'm going to be sharing with you the ins and outs and how to apply and access SBA's Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, as well as the Advance Program. Next slide, please. So who's eligible? Any business that has been impacted by the COVID-19 or coronavirus that has 500 or less employees, and you have to have been in operation before January 21st of this year. Businesses with more than 500 employees, of course, are considered under our standard SBA small business size standards. They are also eligible. Any small business cooperatives, independent contractors, sole proprietors are all eligible. Nonprofits of any size are eligible for our disaster assistance loans, as well as, this is new for us, with faith-based organizations being eligible to also apply. Now, the caveat on the faith-based organization is that they must provide social services of what they're deeming to be a secular nature. By that, what we mean is simply they provide child care services, perhaps, or some type of housing and shelter services, or they may have a food kitchen or food distribution services. Next slide, please. So some of the parameters of the disaster loan program, or the economic injury disaster loan program, is that we have a maximum threshold of $2 million, up to $2 million. So that is any business owner, private nonprofit, can borrow up to $2 million, depending on what your needs are, for working capital needs. When we say working capital needs, there's no specification that it has to be payroll, certainly you can use the services or the dollars for sick leave, rent, mortgages, payments, any installment payments that you may have, any pre-existing debt, as well as, of course, as payroll. The interest rate for businesses is at 3.75%, and for nonprofits, the interest rate is 2.75% with a term of up to 30 years. So these are some of the tools that make these loans affordable. Of course, we have that interest rate that is substantially below market. We also have the extended term, and there's also a built-in 12-month deferment for any of the COVID EIDL loans, and you'll hear me use that acronym for you, as well as the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. There's no personal guarantees required unless the loan is over $200,000, and we're basing your eligibility and approval on the information that's contained in the streamlined loan application and, of course, your credit score. For the economic injury disaster loans for COVID-19, there are no real estate requirements as collateral. For any loan that's over $25,000, we'll just take a blanket UCC filing, and there may be some minimal fees involved in that. And of course, those fees would be rolled right into your loan. Next slide, please. So the emergency economic injury disaster loan advance, or you may have heard folks refer to it as the grant, is actually an advance of your economic injury disaster loan. So let's say that you are approved for a $100,000 disaster loan, and you're approved also for the maximum advance of $10,000. That first $10,000 you would not be obligated to repay that. So it's basically an advance on your loan proceeds that does not have to be paid. And that is for any business owner that may be declined for the economic injury disaster loan piece. You still have access to that economic injury advance, and you still don't have to pay that back. So how do you access this economic injury advance or the loan? We have a very simplified application as a result of all of the overflow of applicants from last week. SBA significantly streamlined the disaster loan application process, and there's basically one application, very simplified application. I've heard folks say that they can complete it in 10 to 15 minutes. So you go to SBA.gov, you click on the yellow banner at the top of that says coronavirus or COVID-19, and you would access the simplified streamlined application. That one application will take care of you applying for the economic injury disaster loan as well as the advance. And I believe it's on the 4th page of the application. You can't miss it, so I don't want anyone to feel like they're going to miss it. You can't miss it. There's a question that says, do you want to apply for the advance? You're going to click yes, and you're going to submit your routing number and your account number so that those advance funds can be directly deposited. And there's no additional documentation required for the economic injury loan. It's just that simple. So you're applying for both the economic injury disaster loan as well as the advance in that one step in the streamlined application. And now I'll turn it over to Craig to talk about some of our additional resources.
Thank you, Yolanda. I appreciate that. One of the things that we touched on, and one of the real important parts of the elements of the CARES Act is many borrowers who haven't dealt with putting together financial records recently, or the lending process, or what the path forward is supposed to look like, or maybe even because there are choices within the EIDL, EIDL Advanced, and within the payroll protection programs, which ones might they want to apply for and which ones they might not want to apply for, depending upon what their circumstances are with their, with their business model, with their, with their expenses, and with their payroll. We have free resources, starting with your own Congressman Stanton's website. We also have SCORE. We have small business development centers and women's business centers that can help you with counseling, with guidance, with loan applications, with business planning, with marketing strategy, with everything that you can think of that a small business would have to deal with. One important note to make is that specifically the Women's Business Center has Spanish speaking counselors that can help you navigate the English translation of this particular application process. We also have the VBOC, which is the Veterans Business Outreach Center. We have microlenders, participating lenders that you can lean on as well. And my advice to you would be just make sure that you are staying abreast of everything that's happening by being on distribution channels directly from the government, because that's where you're going to get the most correct information. And in addition to that, look at your state organizations, look at your county and your city organizations as well. And I'm sure that Congressman Stanton can attest to this, between the city of Phoenix and whatever city you live in and the state, the Commerce Authority, they can have supportive programs that follow and align themselves with what we're presenting to you here, but they are completely separate that you may be eligible for. So you're definitely going to want to make sure that you stay in contact with your community so that if there are other programs, other sources of assistance, that you make yourself available to it. And the only way that you will is by reaching out and making sure that you are on the distribution list for any of those organizations or entities that you're familiar with or that apply to you.
Thank you very much, Craig and Yolanda. That was an outstanding presentation. I know we have more information coming as well, but we didn't have a chance, maybe have a little question and answer period. I did want to note that my team for my website at the Congressman Stanton's website has put together a resource guide in both English and Spanish. The Spanish-speaking community here locally is an incredibly entrepreneurial community, and we want to make sure that all people have a chance to access these important programs during these very, very challenging times. Okay, I have a few questions here for you, and hopefully you can answer them as expeditiously as possible. Both of these programs that you described in detail as part of this webinar, the PPP and the EIDL, they are much needed programs. Can a single business apply for both programs? And that's for any of our guests.
Yeah, I'll tackle that one. You can. Yes, you can apply for either or. However, what you do need to be careful of, and what the advice here is you can't use the money for the same thing for both programs. So you'll need to differentiate, for example, what you, as an example, you might want to use the payroll protection for just payroll and use the EIDL for other expenses, because you're going to want to be able to substantiate the forgiveness on the payroll protection, which means you're going to have proof that you used it for those eligible purposes mentioned earlier.
All right, thank you very much. Obviously, the purpose of these programs from a congressional perspective is that businesses keep as many people employed as possible during these unprecedented, challenging times. As we get through the public health care crisis and get our economy back online, it's going to be a lot easier if businesses have kept as many people employed as possible, including access to much needed healthcare, employment-based healthcare programs. Okay, another question. And this is probably the one that many people on this webinar want to know. If you successfully apply for EIDL, how long until the money arrives in my account?
Yes, thank you for that question. And realistically, we want folks to apply as soon as possible. Because we have the advanced component to it, it's important that you go ahead and apply right away. Again, I mentioned that when you're applying for the EIDL, you're applying for both the loan program for working capital as well as that up to $10,000 advance. That's money that's going to be directly deposited, and I'm told that within the next few days they want to get those advances out to folks. So it's important that if you haven't already applied, please apply as soon as you get off of this call to make sure that you can have access to that advance money, because again, that's advanced to you in advance of your actual loan.
That's great. And then the PPP program, we hope and pray it can go live tomorrow, although there are some reports that banks aren't ready yet. What are you hearing about whether or not the banks are ready to work with you for the PPP program?
Well, Congressman Stanton, that's an excellent question, and it's one that I've heard a lot in the community, and each lender is going to be different. Once we present the guidance to the lenders, there are some that are building an infrastructure as we speak. There are some that are waiting to hear how the rules and policies are going to affect them. And then there are some that may choose not to participate. And until we provide that to the lending community, we wouldn't be able to tell you exactly which lender. But what I would tell you is that because the lenders have a lot of businesses in their portfolios, if they don't provide the PPP loan program, and there are a number of borrowers out there searching for those opportunities, their portfolios are going to go into shambles. So it's very likely that you will see the majority of our participants aggressively marketing and providing the PPP loan. And I would expect that to start immediately for some, and then for some, they will trickle in as it goes forward. But I would just stay tuned to your office, Congressman Stanton, and to the other channels, because I do know that we are building an infrastructure to be able to provide a direct sign up for lenders that want to participate in PPP that we'll be unveiling as well. When we provide the guidance to the lending community, the borrowers will be able to go in and find a list based on where they're located.
Thank you very much. Another question about PPP, are contractors eligible?
When you say contractors, you mean individuals who are self-employed contractors? Yes, they would be. That is in the guide that the Senate Small Business Committee put out, and all of the fact sheets that have been put out as well. So yes, they would be eligible to apply as an entity.
What about sole proprietors?
Sole proprietors as well, yes.
LLCs.
How about let's talk about the 10,000.
Organization.
Please.
Yeah, organization type is all eligible. It's just that they need to be in existence by those minimum dates. So the type of organization, and even if you're, a contractor, you would also be able to apply for PPP, and I believe also with EIDL. But I'll let Yolanda speak to that.
Thank you, Craig, and thank you, Congressman. Yes, both independent contractors and sole proprietors are eligible to apply for the economic injury disaster loan, as well as the advance.
All right, for the $10,000 advance, obviously it can only be spent for certain types of expenditures. What documents should recipients of that advance maintain so they can show that they have spent the money appropriately?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I would recommend that anyone that received the advance to go to your local bank and set up a separate account. You want to have some really nice, clean bookkeeping. We're encouraging everyone to access all of the programs, but of course there may be some that are overlapping. So just to take some of the stress out of it, I would encourage you to open a bank account where you'll have a nice clean system of debits and credits and what you use your advance for. Now with the economic injury advance, there's not a requirement that you use it for payroll. So you can utilize it for things other than payroll, for sick leave, for rent, for mortgage payments, for installment payments. So you do have some flexibility with the use of funds.
Another question about PPP, are commission-based independent contractors eligible?
About that.
Did you have a chance to hear the question? If you want time to research that, I can move on to a different question, and then we can get back to that one at a later time. I want to make sure we're using our time as efficiently as possible. You want a little more time on that one?
Where's Craig?
Can you hear me? Hello? Okay, Craig, can you hear me okay? Yolanda, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, I was going to say on the issue about commission-based independent contractors, we're going to hold that question and come back to it later on, but we want to get an answer for people whether commission-based independent contractors would be eligible for Paycheck Protection Act.
Okay, I'll make sure Craig gets that one.
All right. Gig economy, Airbnb, or other similar type program. Are Airbnb hosts eligible for either of these programs?
Yes, they are eligible for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program.
Thank you very much. What if a business has already let some of their employees go? Some of their employees are now receiving unemployment insurance. Can that business still qualify for either of these programs?
Those businesses would be eligible for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. Greg would have to give you more information on the PPP program.
They would also be eligible for PPP, and apologize, the mute button was not working properly.
Aha, all right, welcome back.
I did hear you though. And yes, commissions are an acceptable form of payroll to be counted in the PPP program as well for those independent contractors that's their primary source of income.
Okay, and then earlier question, I think you were on mute still, was commission-based independent contractors, are they eligible?
They are.
Excellent. Okay, I've applied, imagine I'm a small business, I've applied for an SBA loan. What can I expect now, and is there a way to check on the status of the loan?
Yes, I'll take that question. To check on the status, we encourage everyone to contact SBA's customer service number at 800-659-2955, or you can send an email to disasterassistance@sba.gov. But we're encouraging everyone to please be patient with us as we staff up our call center to accommodate all of the calls, the increased call volume. So that is the way that you would check the status of your SBA Economic Injury Disaster Loan.
All right, I have a question regarding nonprofits. We received a question in advance. I wanted to give you a chance to answer it. Nonprofits are such an important part of our local economy. They employ a lot of people. So imagine a nonprofit partner with the city of Phoenix. This nonprofit doesn't pay rent, but they do pay a revenue share to the city of Phoenix. Can that nonprofit use an SBA assistance to pay the revenue share to the city?
On the PPP program, it is possible that revenue share would need to employ individuals who are eligible to be considered employees of the nonprofit.
All right.
But that might be more of a legal question, because what it comes down to is whether it's a nonprofit or whether it's any other entity type is the proceeds for the PPP loan going towards establishing payroll and payroll benefits for individuals who are not compensated with as a result of the COVID virus. So you'd have to look at that a little deeper, but the simple answer would be likely yes, as long as that were the case.
All right, thank you very much. Another particular question that someone had asked in advance. It's a business, they say they rent suites to over 200 self-employed independent businesses. Many of those businesses that they rent to have not been required by law to shut down, but many of them have closed the businesses because they are staying home with children. Are those businesses eligible to apply for the EIDL program? Again, businesses that were not forced to close, but had to close because they had to take care of child care at home.
Yes, those businesses are eligible. We would encourage them to apply.
All right, and then one final question. A few more questions, excuse me. We launched a new business, another particular question. A business launched after February 15th. Are there any SBA benefit or programs that a business launching after February 15th could apply for?
In terms of the eligibility for the PPP program, if they were an entity in operation after February 15th,
yep,
then they would be eligible to submit expenses and then attempt to have them forgiven through PPP.
Got it. Okay. Here's another question that was submitted in advance. We being a business, we do not know if we will need a loan currently. Would it be a good idea to get the process started in case we begin to see past due receivables and a slowdown in the market?
Yes, I'll take that question, and I would encourage any business owner to go ahead and apply right away. There's absolutely no obligation to take the loan if you find that other programs become available that suit your needs, but I would encourage you not to wait to go ahead and apply for that EIDL loan as well as the advance, and certainly if you don't need the loan portion, you can simply cancel the loan.
Excellent. Let's see. Business owners that have DACA eligible employees, are they eligible to participate in these programs?
In terms of the status of their employees, I'm not aware that the status of their employees has anything to do with eligibility. The eligibility is based on the number of employees total and the business being in operation after February 15th. So I haven't seen any policy that excludes them based on who their employees are.
Okay, and the next question, of course, is businesses owned by DACA eligible individuals. Are they able to access these important programs?
Yolanda, I don't know if you have an answer for that. I can try to answer on the payroll protection side. We don't have
Any business owner on our side, any business owner that has, as long as they have an EIN number, a Social Security number, they're eligible to apply.
Okay, so on the IDL side, it sounds like they are eligible. On the PPP side, we don't have guidance on specific eligibility, or we'll call it fringe eligibility yet. So I wouldn't be able to answer that question until we get guidance on it. It is likely to be aligned with EIDL eligibility, but for those particular individuals, they may need to stay very, very close to your office, Congressman Stanton, just so
Yes.
that when we get it, we can provide it to you and let them know.
Okay, thank you very much for that information. We're just about out of time. If you have any additional questions for people that have listened in on this important webinar, please do not hesitate to reach out. Our job is to be here to help. I want to thank our panelists, Craig, Yolanda, and Delia. I appreciate your time and expertise. I sincerely appreciate what the SBA is doing right now during these incredibly challenging times to help small business. Thank you to everyone who participated in today's webinar. This is only the first of many webinars that my office will be hosting to connect you directly to experts that can help you to access these important programs. If you need help, please do not hesitate to contact me on the screen. You should be able to see how to get in touch with my office. And although my staff is teleworking, we are still providing full constituent service operations. That includes assisting small businesses. On my website, we've also created a specific page with COVID-19 resources. So whether it's SBA programs or other programs, as new resources become available, my website will be updated. The website address, stanton.house.gov. Thank you again. These are incredibly tough times, but together we will make it through this. As your member of Congress, I will continue to fight for small business, and I will continue to fight for families throughout our community. Thank you again. Stay healthy and safe.
Thank you.